Paul Clifton Anthony George was born in Palmdale, California when Paul and Paulette George welcomed a bouncing baby boy on May 2, 1990. He has two older sisters. PG-13 went to Knight High School in Palmdale. He was considered a 3-star recruit and went to Fresno State where he averaged 17 points and 7 rebounds. When the Indiana Pacers selected George with the 10th overall pick in the 2010 NBA draft, he quickly rose to stardom. George made his name in the NBA when he went head-to-head in consecutive seasons against the LeBron James, who was at the peak of his powers, and the iconic Big Three Miami Heat. Listed as a shooting guard, Paul George possesses the rare capability of guarding 1 through 4 as a 6'9" wing. His rangy defense has helped elevate his individual value to an elite level. At just 23 years old, George led his Indiana Pacers to a brutal 7-game showdown with the eventual champion Miami Heat, a series that put George on the map as one of the very best young players in all of basketball. The moment that the 66-win defending champs knew it was going to be a long series is when Indy's 22-year-old emerging superstar drove down the lane past LeBron and pulled off this iconic dunk over Chris "Birdman" Anderson. George only continued to emerge as a superstar, while the Pacers, for the most part, were a mediocre team, especially after Indiana failed to put much of any talent after they lost David West, Roy Hibbert, and Lance Stevenson. In August 2014, George gruesomely snapped his lower leg in half in a Team USA scrimmage game, ending Indiana's hope for another title push in the 2014-15 season. That injury looked and felt devastating for every NBA fan. Here George was only at 24 years old and coming off his best season as a pro, a season in which George finished as one of the top candidates for the MVP award. And now everyone speculated if George would ever return as the same player after such a horrific lower extremity injury. After a long year of preparation to get back on the hardwood, George came back and looked better than ever in the years ensuing the injury. But again, the Pacers could never bring in much of any talent at all to pair with George. So the disgruntled George began making it clear that he wanted out. PG was traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder for Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis. He proved again as one of the best two-way players in the world when he finished in top 3 for both MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. Talk about being in some rare company. The LA Clippers swung a deal for George right after landing reigning Finals MVP Kawhi Leonard via free agency. The NBA world literally shook that day. And although they haven't reached their great ceiling as a duo thus far, George is coming back healthy along with Kawhi to help the Clippers finally reach the finals, something they have never done. Let's see if the Clippers can ever get there with Paul George. He would be a franchise legend. Now, let's see how PG-13 makes that cheese. Contracts. Paul's first contract was a 2-year deal worth around $4.6 million when he averaged 8 points per game in his rookie season and increased that scoring average to 13 in his second season. In just his 3rd season in the league, George officially put the NBA on notice when his scoring average surged to over 17 points per game en route to making his first NBA All-Star appearance and receiving Most Improved Player of the Year honors. But as George's play on the court grew to dazzle NBA fans, so did the numbers on his contracts. George inked a 5-year rookie max extension worth $91 million that was set to kick in starting from the 2014-15 season. That's an average salary of around $18 million per year. He was now not an emerging star, he was entering superstardom. And then came the greatest hardship in PG-13's career when his broken leg stunned the NBA world. After what appeared to be a 1-year layover at OKC, George stunned NBA fans when he elected to re-sign with the Thunder on a 4-year, $137 million deal in 2018. That's an average annual salary of $34 million, after making nearly $20 million the previous season. So yeah, he got his wish after all after he went home to LA. But good news didn't stop coming for George. Just before the start of the condensed 2021 season, George inked a 4-year, $190 million contract. That's an average salary of $44 million. Talk about getting a raise. Endorsements. PG-13 has been a star in the NBA for a while. But it was really around 2017 that the off-the-court endeavors really began making an extra difference in George's annual earnings. In 2017, George's first signature shoe by Nike was released, PG1. They have come out with more versions of the sneaker, and we love the PG6. Go get you a pair. Later that year, it was announced that George would grace the cover of NBA 2K as the cover athlete. I think many of us remember his famed Gatorade commercial where he was filmed hitting a game-winning shot. He also did that in 2017, by the way. But as they say, the rich get richer. Off the court, George makes roughly $8.5 million each year. Holy moly! House. PG's first house was a 12,000 square foot Indianapolis mansion that was on a half-acre and had a private dock. The living room had gorgeous water views. The kitchen is bright and had a built-in aquarium. He had a pool table and built a koi pond. It also had an elevator and wine cellar and lake views in almost every room. Paul sold the house for $2.1 million when he moved out of Indiana. Paul George, like many NBA players, already owned a house in LA long before he was traded to the Clippers. He had a 16,000 square foot mansion in Hidden Hills with 7 bedrooms. The house features a game room, gym, home theater, and wine cellar. Outside, a large patio, a pool and spa, a full basketball court, and an entertainment complex including fire pit are scattered among lawns, plantings, and fruit trees. PG-13 wanted to upgrade, and he actually sold the house to rapper French Montana for $8.4 million. In September of that year, George purchased a mansion in Pacific Palisades. If you think that sounds like some ridiculously pricey area, you're spot on right. It's a 3-story elevator-equipped behemoth of a home that was actually once the former home to LA Clipper DeAndre Jordan. Spanning 10,000 square feet, the home features 7 bedrooms and 10 bathrooms. There's also a swimming pool, temperature-controlled wine cellar, elevator, putting green, and of course, half-court basketball court. He dropped a hefty $16 million for this amazing crib right here. Talk about living it up. Cars. PG-13 uses a good chunk of his paychecks on his fantastic collection of cars. In 2016, he bought the Ferrari 458 Spider, George's dream car, and if we're being quite honest, a dream car for us all. Come on, it's a Ferrari. George also owns a Ferrari F430 and a Porsche Panamera in his garage. For Mother's Day a few years back, George gifted his then-fiancée with a white Range Rover SUV. Love life. Daniela Rajic and Paul George have come a long way since Rajic slapped George with a paternity lawsuit in 2013. Rajic sued George claiming he asked her to get rid of the baby and offering money, all while George and the Pacers were trying to fight for an NBA Finals berth in the Eastern Conference Finals. Daniela was a stripper and has a swimsuit line called Nude Swim. But since then, they've both rekindled and have been in a relationship ever since. And they also have 3 kids through their years together. Then it was finally a partnership when Rajic posted on her Instagram caption "Forever and Ever" after she and George were officially married in June. We're glad to see that everything worked out. Real quick, we wanted to give a shout out to Prashant M. Thanks for following us all the time. If you comment and engage with us, you'll be eligible to win a shout out from Big Time Hoops. Much love, fam. Net worth. PG-13's career has hit some brutal lows and some huge highs as well. But now we must find out how much is Paul George actually worth. With everything going on in his life, Paul George has a net worth of $110 million. Big time baller for sure.